Let's meet someone who's breaking barriers in women's health. I'm Kate Save. The Inspired CEO starts now. Welcome to The Inspired CEO, where each episode we explore the innovative wellness practices that are driving success and longevity in the modern business world. In this episode, we chat with Stephanie Slater, co-founder of Askley, an educator and an advocate for women's health. Drawing from 14 years in educational leadership and personal experience with postnatal depression, she empowers women at every life stage. With a master's in wellbeing and recognition in startup ecosystems, Stephanie leads Askley in connecting women to essential health services, transforming lives. Thank you so much for coming in today, Steph. And I can see that you look like you've got one on the way.
We definitely do have one on the way. Thank you for having me. Yes, 5 months pregnant with our third.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So you have so much experience in this area, but...
I like to think so.
Tell me, how did you get started? Where was the initiative to really found a company around this?
Yeah, so Askley was born out of our own lived experience. So my husband and I co-founded it. It all began after our second child was born, 6 months postpartum. I was diagnosed with postnatal depression. And in that time of my life, I was sort of told by the GP to take antidepressants. And my background is psychology, so there's definitely a time and place for medication. But for myself, I didn't feel like the right first point of call was to take something synthetic that my body had to make sense of and then wean off of.
Yeah.
And so I did my own investigating. My husband and I really researched what we were taking and what impact it has on our body, especially women, where sort of women's health is very much undervalued and under-researched. So we tend to just take whatever we're told.
We're very complex. So I found that a lot of the research is on men and actually not on women because of cycles.
Yes, and women weren't included in clinical studies up until the 80s, which is, horrific. I mean, they didn't test tampons using blood, they use saline. Like there's a lot that we can go into, but I won't go into all of that. But we learnt about, my husband learnt about this genetic mutation, which 40 to 60% of the population have. And with this genetic mutation, you cannot convert, or you struggle to convert folic acid, which folate, B9, is a main form that we need during pregnancy and beyond. So for all men and women, we actually need it for DNA, for cardiovascular health. There's a myriad of reasons why we need it. And if you can't convert it, it can sit in your body and become toxic. And there have been links to suggest the malabsorption of folic acid and miscarriage and postnatal depression.
Wow.
And we had 2 miscarriages and then diagnosed postnatal depression.
Wow, that is unbelievable. And you were not told about that prior. So you had been taking a standard supplement with the wrong type of folate that was toxic for your body.
That my body could not absorb.
Gosh.
And we thought, do I have this genetic mutation? And so we did a DNA test, just a really easy cheek swab. And sure enough, I had the genetic mutation, or have, I should say, the genetic mutation, and the 2 strongest strands, which is probably the least common. And so I just thought, if there even is a 0.001% chance that the malabsorption of folic acid led to these things, shouldn't I be informed and educated and empowered to make that decision? And it turns out that most supplements on the market, off the shelf, are the synthetic form of this vitamin. And we just didn't think that that was good enough. It was not good enough for anyone, and it's definitely not good enough for women, especially when you're carrying a child and beyond. And there's so much that occurs post-birth that we tend to forget about as well. And that has led into the space of perimenopause and menopause, another really underfunded and undervalued area or stage of women's life. So we decided to make our own supplement.
Incredible.
And that's what Askley is. Askley is pharmaceutical-grade, prescription-only dietary supplements for women of all stages.
All stages, so you can take it at any time in life?
Anytime, because it's totally prescription. So you have a telehealth consult with one of our team of nutritionists and naturopaths, and we're actually about to go into GP clinics.
Great.
They prescribe a formulation made for you, specifically for you. They look at your medical history, medication background, lifestyle, and then they formulate for you. It goes to a beautiful compounding pharmacy here in Australia who use all TGA grade, high dosage bioavailable forms of each of the ingredients, and then you get your own personalised powder, and it's 1 scoop once a day.
That is so empowering for women to actually understand, get to know their bodies. Where would they go for the genetic test? How would they find this out?
So we used My DNA.
Great, yeah.
And I think Alan's been on your show.
He has been on the show. Alan, you will love this little pitch.
Little thing for you. But wonderful, just so easy. You can just order it online. Comes to your door, cheek swab, send it off, and then you get so much information, which is incredible. It just talks to you about your predisposition to things based on your genetic markers. And then we can utilise that to inform your formulation. Yes. So we use things like your DNA, we use blood work, but we also just use symptoms, because often our blood work comes back as in the range.
Yeah, normal.
You're normal, but I'm still tired, but my period still really hurts, but I'm having these hot flushes, all that kind of thing, where we're often dismissed or it's in your head. Endometriosis, for example, was considered a psychosomatic disorder, again, up until I think it was the 70s. Gosh. So it's all in your head, which it's not. We know that. It takes 8 years, though, to be diagnosed with endometriosis. Ooh. And these are just all these different cases where women are coming to us saying, I'm being dismissed, no one listens to me, they're not validating my health concerns. And we just take the time to sit with them, to really listen. I think that's what women are crying out for. Yeah. Like, just tell me it's not in my head, just tell me I'm not crazy. And then from that, we just create a beautiful blend that's made for them. So it doesn't matter what's going on in their lifestyle, we will cater to you, and we adjust every 3 months. So you're never on the same thing over and over.
It's lovely you've got the support on the team as well with the consultations, that you can actually personalise this and not just listen but prescribe.
Yes.
And make sure the right thing goes to the right person. Now, tell me about the challenges of actually scaling this up. It's all well and good to do it for one person or a handful of people. I'm sure you had lots of friends and family you tested it on, but how do you take that next level?
Yeah, good question. We're constantly learning and iterating as we go. The beautiful thing about Asklate is it's one of one, so it's never going to be this mass manufactured, we spit out 1 million formulas, because that just goes against every grain of what we are and who we are. But we have a telehealth because it's really important that women are educated on what they need and not just making their own concoctions. It's also a legal requirement to have something prescription because of the dosages that we put in it. They're quite potent.
Right.
And so in terms of scaling, we're going into GP clinics, as I mentioned before. We have a beautiful collaboration happening with actually a skin clinic, where a lot of dermal clinicians are seeing all these issues that come up in our skin, and it's really because of what's going on internally. So they always talk to their women about, let's sort out what's going on internally, and then we can help you with anti-aging and all these other things. But if I'm sitting here supporting rosacea, that's actually a gut thing. So let's get your nutrition right.
And that's right, beauty starts from the inside.
It does.
And I think ultimately our health is about what we're putting in. And if we're not putting the right ingredients in, then we're certainly not going to get the result that we want. So tell me a little bit more about how you manage your health. What is your health routine with 2.5 children?
Yes. Awful time to ask me that. I'm learning to be really gracious with myself as well. I think that's something that, again, as women, and I'm a type A personality, so perfectionists always want to do it perfectly. And I'm learning that it's okay to have moments where you don't eat as well and you don't eat your green goddess salad or whatever it might be, but really nourishing myself. And truly, this sounds like a plug, but with my Asklate formulation, I know I'm getting the nutrients that I need to ensure that I'm not coming into my birth from a depleted state. A lot of women will go into birth already depleted because of their diet. And we always say diet and lifestyle are always crucial. That's number one. Get your diet right. This isn't a magic pill. It's not going to, fix everything, but it can certainly give you these beautiful foundations for optimal health. But you can't then go and eat Maccas every night and expect your Asklate formulation to support you.
So take us back a little bit to when you actually were going through the postnatal depression. What were the signs and symptoms, just so that other people watching can really tune into their bodies and look out for these things?
Yeah.
And how did you then know who to speak to or where to start?
Yeah. I think it's interesting with postnatal depression because a crazy statistic I learnt later on is that it's most often diagnosed 4 years postpartum. Right. So we tend to put all this emphasis in the first year after birth, but actually, we know postnatal depletion lasts up to 7 to 10 years.
Gosh.
Postnatal depression, most often diagnosed 4 years postpartum. Now, mine was diagnosed 6 months postpartum, so I was in that critical 1 year where, you feel very overwhelmed. And I just was being a typical mum, getting on and doing, and I wasn't eating well. I was trying to do it all, and I cried a lot.
Yeah.
That was my most obvious, overt symptom that I think you couldn't ignore. And I just thought I was emotional though. I just thought it was the hormones.
Yeah.
But again, even if it is the hormones, we can support those hormones. We can support those fluctuations that occur. You know, there's fluctuations that occur when you're weaning from breastfeeding. It's really important to support that. So the crying, and it was without a real reason. And there were reasons, there were plenty of reasons, but it would just be, I would be driving home. The crux of it was I was driving home, bawling my eyes out. My mother-in-law was with the kids, and I was trying to pull myself together to get in at home to say hello, and I just couldn't. And it was those really dark, depressive moments. I then had one episode where I did feel suicidal, and Will came and sat with me on the bathroom floor and said, we need to call Lifeline, we need to do something about this.
Yeah. And that was where you started with Lifeline?
Yes. Couldn't get through though. And that's nothing against Lifeline. This is just, I think, again, the underfunding of so much that, well, women really need, but individuals in general, you know, they're just completely bombarded. So thank God I have a village, and we talk about a village for women a lot. I had people around me that noticed, and I think something is to not be defensive when they notice things in you, because I think for me it was like I was failing.
And you seem like such a strong person, so I can imagine that letting your guard down can be really, really difficult, and opening up when, you know, perhaps before having children, if you weren't someone who cried and then you're crying, and, you know, not talking about things is the worst thing you can do, isn't it?
And it's funny because I have a background in psychology. I used to teach psychology. I taught all of this. I taught mental health. I'm such an advocate for it. But when it's you, you just take it so personally, and a big emotion for me was shame. I just couldn't overcome that shame. And I had to work with a lot of psychologists. I had two in particular that really just helped me see that there's no shame in this. This is part of your journey. Hence why I'm so passionate about women's health and women knowing that they're not alone, and it has translated into even older stages of life, because that's where I will be heading. Eventually I will head to perimenopause, and you know, that starts at 42. Well, it can be as early as 37, which I'm 36. So it never ends. A woman's journey never ends, and we deserve the time and space to be validated in that.
Thank you so much for coming on today, and I think everyone would have learnt some things they definitely wouldn't have known. So this is the Inspired CEO, and we'll be right back.